The good times keep rolling in the class of 2026. Tyren Parker, another in-state recruit for KU football, Lance Leipold and company.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sup, Derek Johnson here. This is a bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks because Tyren Parker, a three-star recruit in the class of 2026 in-state kid, has joined the class of 2026 for KU football and Lance Leipold. And we're going to break it all down, what it means for the class, what it means for the future of the receiver position, Parker's game, all that and more on today's bonus episode of the show. Let's get right into it. Tyren Parker, he is a three-star receiver in the class of 2026 from Tecumseh, Kansas, and out of Shawnee Heights High School. Again, three-star recruit, and he chose Kansas over offers from Kansas State, which is always a big one, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State. So a lot of other Big 12 beef, a lot of other Big 12 brass in on that one. And obviously the Kansas State one is the one that sticks out because this continues kind of the, I guess you would say, in-state dominance that Kansas is having so far on the trail in 2026, right? Most other years it's Kansas State having that in-state dominance, but Kansas is really building something. The question will be, is this class of 2026 starting something for Kansas that's going to continue year in and year out, or is this just, one class that Kansas is going to dominate? Either way, it's a good thing for Kansas. Obviously, you hope it's more of the starting of something, momentum in state. But you look at now, Kansas having 12 commits in the class, and a lot of them are in the state of Kansas. There are 11 players that are ranked right now by 24/7 Sports in the state of Kansas. And for KU, coming into this commitment, they already had 6 of them committed. Well, Parker becomes the 7th commit in the class just from the state for KU. So you had Caden Snyder, who's listed as number 2. These are by 24/7 Sports rankings. Hunter Higgins, 4, J.J. Dunnigan, 5, Josh Galbraith, 6, Nate Sims, 9, Parker, 10, and then Jalen Mason, the quarterback, in at number 11. There's also 3 others that are uncommitted, Ian Premer being the biggest of them all, the 4-star tight end from Great Bend. And the one guy who is committed that did not pick Kansas is at Clemson, where it's like, okay, I mean, you can understand like a kid picking Clemson, you know what I mean? Like, obviously a very good school and obviously a free state kid. I'd imagine Kansas is, going to try to keep recruiting him as much as they can, in the same way that Calvin Clements, a free state kid, was committed to Baylor and they kept on him and eventually decommitted and picked Kansas. Like, who knows if that ends up happening or not? But point being, 7 commits in the top 11 in the state of Kansas. And right now, Kansas State was 0. Again, it's not something we're used to seeing, and it's pretty cool what they're doing. You look at the overall class of 2026 for KU. I mean, they're already ranked 5th before this commitment. Actually, this is the 13th commit, excuse me. They were ranked 5th in the 24/7 Sports rankings. Now, you look at some of the average ratings of KU's class compared to those other teams who are, in that top 7 or so. Like, it is different. Like, once those other schools get more commits in terms of quantity, Kansas will drop there. But could this still end up like a top 40 class or top 35 class? I don't know. Maybe it will. Like, that would still be a huge deal for Kansas. And you look at the level of recruits, right? We talk about all the time. Can Kansas get these recruits who are 86 or higher? That's pretty much all of them to this point in time. And when you look at Tyren Parker, that kind of becomes the thing with Parker as well. And so it's 13 commits in the class for KU. You have a loaded receiver group, which we'll get into a little bit later, with 3 receivers as part of the class. And just seemingly a majority of your class is going to be done before we even get done with spring football. I mean, I don't know how many kids KU is going to bring in the class. Obviously, you're losing another load of seniors at the end of this year, so you'd imagine it's going to be in the high teens. Maybe it closes in on 20. I mean, certainly you've left yourself with a lot of time to fill out the rest of the class, but this is an unbelievable job by KU, not just to get a good recruiting class, but to get it done by this point in time. It just allows them more time to really hone in on other things. It allows them more time to hone in on just the kids that are already committed, to keep recruiting them to try to make sure they stay in tow. Let's get into Parker's game, though, and that future receiver room for Kansas. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better way to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love with FanDuel the fact that you can track the bets very easily. I love the interface of FanDuel. I love, too, that you can sort when you go into my bets. You can sort by cash out only. So, like, if you have a bunch of futures in there, you can see, hey, what cash out options do I have, right? Like, maybe you're against cashing out. I don't know, but I like that. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. It's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us on this bonus episode. Don't forget to check out our regular episode, I guess you could say, if you're an everydayer. Thank you to already tuning into it with a KU basketball portal target already that could be visiting this week. And we broke down his game and also talked a little bit about KU's top recruit for basketball, Darren Peterson, scoring 58 points against AJ DeBonsa and the BYU commit there. Okay, so more on Tyren Parker. He is a 6'3", 185-pound receiver, plays defensive back and receiver at Shawnee Heights High School. And last season as a junior, he put up 50 catches for 946 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's in 9 games. So that's over 100 receiving yards per game as a junior. And he averaged 140 all-purpose yards per game. Pretty good stuff there. 24/7 Sports lists him as an 86 graded 3-star as an athlete, but it seems like everybody's kind of pointing to him being a receiver. And again, the number 10 player in the state. Rivals lists him as the number 8 player in the state of Kansas in a 5.6 graded 3-star. When you watch some of the tape, I think he shows some really good acceleration in the open field. We're going to get into a little bit on the receivers you have brought in. I don't think he's as fast as those guys, which, I mean, that's not saying like a bad thing. Tyren Parker, I think, still has good speed. But you have those different versions. I always think from like the video game perspective, right? In the video games, you have, I think it's speed, agility, and acceleration. Like those are different types of speed. Speed might be like right away, how fast you can get to your top gear. Acceleration might be once you get to your top gear, how fast you going. Agility is more of like your, can you juke by a guy, like a quick feet sort of thing. I think his acceleration would be his best skill among those three if you were looking at it. Maybe it's because of the long legs, being 6'3". He runs really hard when he gets the ball too. And I think because of the 6'3" body, the acceleration, he's a really good deep ball receiver. He also makes some jump ball catches as well, where he has good focus on the ball and is able to use that frame to go up and get a ball over a guy and does a good job kind of boxing out in that way. So I think combination of all those things, I view him as being that really good deep ball receiver. And you look at most of the highlights, if you watch some of them, it's deep balls or it's screen passes. So I'll be curious to see what the usage is at Kansas. Like, is there a full route tree there? Is it just he's being asked to do those things because those are the easiest way for his offense at the high school level to proceed? Like that kind of remains a question. But according to his huddle profile, he runs a 4.49 40, a 10.9 100, and a 49.8 400. I want to say Savion Morrison was a 10.7 guy, and he was obviously, I don't know, probably on the faster end of KU players. I don't think he was the fastest player, but he was on the faster end. So, a little slower than what Savion Morrison ran in the 100, but also you're talking about a 6'3" frame, right? So pretty fast with the 6'3" frame. And when you count for the height, I think maybe a little bit of Quentin Skinner here, right? I mean, you could look to the fact that, hey, Quentin Skinner is this tall receiver that I don't view Quentin Skinner as being like the most agile receiver, but had good acceleration downfield. And I think Tyren Parker has that good acceleration downfield. He is a good deep ball threat. I think there could be some similarities between kind of those players and maybe even in how Kansas ends up using him. Let's talk more about that future receiver room as well as the other KU receiver commits that they have in tow now for the class of 2026. Thanks for joining us on this bonus episode of Locked On Jayhawks. We'll have a Kansas-Colorado preview coming at you on tomorrow's episode. And don't forget to check out our episode earlier today talking about Darren Peterson and Nana Owusu-Anane, KU basketball transfer portal target from Brown. Okay, so KU has 3 commits in the class of 2026 that play receiver. Nate Sims, who's graded an 87 by 24/7 Sports. Corbin Glasco, who's graded an 87. And now Tyren Parker. And when you look at it, I think the common theme here is speed. With Parker, he's not as fast as these other guys. He's a fast player overall. Sims, though, is an absolute burner. I think he's listed at like a 4.35 40. Corbin Glasco we talked about some of his 100-meter dash numbers, like faster than guys like McCole Hardman and stuff like that, and what he was able to do. So he's a burner of all burners. Parker, though, the difference between him and Glasgow and Sims, it's interesting. You have, so the fastest guy was Glasgow, but he's also the smallest. Then you have Sims, who is the second fastest, and he's also the second, like, biggest, I guess you would say. And then Parker is the slowest, but again, still fast overall, and is the biggest body. So like you have these different skills that you can use from the different receivers. And it's almost like, okay, Glasgow can be your jet sweep guy and you're in the open field return guy and your screen guy. Whereas with like Parker, he can be your downfield threat and like your jump ball guy. And then with Sims, he can be, kind of a mix of all of it. But the fact that all of them are still fast, give them opportunities to make plays in the open field and do different things for the KU offense and even, run the ball on reverses or jet sweeps. And I think that's a really cool thing that Kansas is adding all this speed to the outside and the receiver room in what they're going to have. Now you look at the future of the receiver room, you look at this year's team, Henderson, Canty, Emilian, and Wentz. Those are all seniors. They'll be gone by 2026. And you have 4 incoming freshmen for this year's team with Nickens, Hayes, Nagy, and Cook. And so you look at it between those 4 freshmen and these three that'll be coming in 2026. Really, that group of players is going to be in hard competition to determine, do any of the young guys get on the field in 2026? And then really who's going to make progress in 2027 and 2028. And you look at the future of the KU quarterback position, right? With whether it's David McComb, Isaiah Marshall, Cole Ballard, whoever it ends up being post Jalen Daniels. These are going to be the guys that are going to be these star receivers, right? It could be any of the players in this class. It could be any of the players in the class of 2025. That could be those star targets for that next KU quarterback to throw to and to develop trust over these upcoming years with those quarterbacks. And that could be Tyren Parker. That could be one of these other guys, but you're throwing darts at this thing. And, if one ends up not hitting or one ends up having injuries, one ends up being a good player, one ends up being an all Big 12 player, you have a lot of options you can go to and a lot of different types of receivers too, right? Like if we mix in this class of 2025, you have maybe more of a slot guy in Tate Nagy. You have more of your kind of all around, like bigger bodied receiver who can make jump ball catches in a guy like Jaden Nickens, who kind of joins Tyren Parker in that area. You have the speedsters in guys like Bryson Hayes and Corbin Glasgow and Nate Sims. So you're building a receiver room that has different characteristics that you can use in different packages, that you can use in different roles, that you can use for different routes and kind of build the best offense that you can based on the role that you need those guys to play. But also you have guys that, because of their speed and their overall ability, could just develop into great overall receivers too. And Tyron Parker certainly joins that group. All right, that'll do it for this episode, bonus show of Locked On Jayhawks. Check out all our other shows as well. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts as well as on our YouTube page. See you next time with LOJ.